Successful meetings and ultimately successful collaborations are about people, first and foremost. When you can't have everybody in the same room with you, it's important to be able to see them, to be able to interact with them, along with the information that you're working on. The only way that we could make it happen every day is to use GoToMeeting.
I'm Michael Parrish Dudell, entrepreneur, speaker, and best-selling author of Shark Tank Jumpstart Your Business. This is a show about discovery, about showcasing the next generation of business and media influencers. It's new, it's now, it's the next crop.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Next Crop. I'm Michael Parrish Dudell. My guest today is Farhad Attaie, the co-founder and CEO of hellosmile, a pediatric healthcare company that serves underprivileged children. Farhad, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you and I both share a passion for working with underprivileged children and just children in general, I think, and making the world a better place for them. How did that happen for you? How did you sort of discover this love or this sort of passion?
Totally. So I think partly I fell into it. I was working in private banking at Merrill Lynch right out of college for 4 years, and quickly realized that being in the banking world, I got a chance to see kind of the ups and downs and really the cycle of money from not having it to having too much of it, and what that does to you. And so I kind of looked in the mirror and I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? Because my whole life, all I really had thought about was, I want to be wealthy, and this is kind of the life that I want to live.
Sure.
So in quickly realizing that that's not, my be-all and end all, I started to get a little bit nervous. So in my nervousness, I was going to Stanford, dropping in on these lunch sessions, really for the free lunch. But what happened is I saw Ben Cohen from Ben & Jerry's speak there one time. Totally serendipitous that he happened to be the one speaking, and it kind of just opened up my world to social business, because that's what he was there, and that's the subject that he was talking on. And so from that moment on, I think something shifted in me, where all that drive and ambition that I had shifted completely into this notion that we could actually use business to make the world a better place.
So that sounds good, right? Business to make the world a better place. And I actually agree with that. But there are a lot of critics out there who say, like, wait a second, business to make the world a better place, that doesn't actually work. With hellosmile, you're proving that it can work. What else have you seen out there in the community, other businesses, other models that are proving this idea that business can in fact drive change?
I think it's something that I've learned, and I think it's something that we're all learning right now. Business and entrepreneurship is the greatest vehicle for change. And we're seeing that even in businesses that are not necessarily deemed social businesses. You look at Airbnb and you look at Uber, they're creating an efficient marketplace where otherwise there was not one. And so I think they're doing a huge social good. And then you've got companies like Tom Shoes and Warby Parker that are coming in and really have an angle and a message that's around social business. So I think we're living in a time where there's no question that entrepreneurship and business and innovation, even from big companies like Nike, everyone is looking to actually make a difference. I think it's very difficult as far as getting to the how you do that, and actually measuring that.
I'm going to ask you a tough question. Do you think that consumers really care? And what I mean by that is something like a Tom's, something like, I don't know the other one you mentioned, like even a Warby Parker, right. People buy Tom's and people buy Warby Parker, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, because the shoes look good and because the glasses look good. The social element, is that as important as we all would like to believe that it is?
Not yet. Not yet, but this is the gateway. I think we're living in a time where consumers are the smartest consumers that they've ever been, and they're demanding more. And I think in our lifetime, we're only going to continue to get smarter as consumers. And as consumers, as you get smarter and you realize that it's an interconnected world, you want to think that your decision making is actually going to make a difference. And doing the work that we're doing at hellosmile, what I've actually come to realize is actually the most important work is each individual person and where we choose to spend our dollars, because that's actually the biggest signifier of our vote of what we want the world to be like.
Which is actually a good segue into hellosmile. Tell me more about what you've been doing, where you're going. What do we need to know about your organization?
Totally. So I think hellosmile started with my brother. He was a pediatric resident at Lutheran in Brooklyn. And towards the end of his residency, he was working 2 jobs, one on the Upper East Side, one in deep in Queens. And I got to visit him on one of these trips to New York, and I took a subway ride. It was about a 4-stop subway ride. And I got to see his work in the Upper East Side. And you can imagine across from the park, the most beautiful clinic, serving some of the wealthiest children in the world. 4 subway stops later, less than a 10-minute ride, we ended up somewhere that I was like, are we in America? And it was shocking for me that within this 10-minute ride, the same 2-year-old is getting, a completely different experience. And I think it was shocking for him as well. So I think that set the seed for something that we saw that it was not okay with us. And so we started 5 years ago, and we actually opened a clinic in deep in Queens was the first clinic. And over the past 5 years, we've really began to reimagine what the delivery of pediatric healthcare could and should be like for all children.
So what's really interesting for me is that, when someone who, maybe a young person who's an entrepreneur, who wants to start a company that's centered around making a difference, a social mission, the first thing they think usually is, I'm going to start a nonprofit. That's the business model, I'm going to go after that. But in fact, in this day and age, maybe that's not the only route they can take, and most of the time that might not even be the best route. Nonprofit world is in some ways broken. Talk to me about the difference when you're creating something that's a catalyst for change, the difference between nonprofit, social enterprise. Do you just start a regular company with a mission? Define that for me.
Yeah, I think for us, being a healthcare company, by nature, healthcare is the original social business, right? Yeah. So I think we both have a nonprofit and we have a for-profit. But for people out there that are getting into the space, I think it's actually taking a step back and seeing you as an individual, how you could be a better individual. I think there's a lot of outward focus on whether it's starting a company or making a move, and not enough inward focus in the space. The world is going to become better by each individual person making better decisions. And that could lead you to starting a nonprofit or for-profit. But I think what I'm seeing is that the change needs to start at the individual level. Do
you think that a nonprofit and a for-profit can affect equal amount of change, or one more than the other?
No, I think there's a time and place for a nonprofit, and there's a time and place to have a for-profit. Of course, what we'd like to see is something that's in the middle, which you're hearing social business or for-purpose, and the government is working on that, and there's still not a solution. There's B Corporation, there's the LC3, which sits between a for-profit and a nonprofit.
And both of those are hard to communicate to consumers because people don't understand what a B Corporation is, or I don't even know what LC3. I haven't even heard of that. So as a business, is it tough, do you find, in those situations to communicate that you're doing good but you're also making money? I mean, that seems like, from a marketing angle, that seems like a tough thing to communicate.
Yeah, I think for us it's a little bit different because, again, we're in healthcare and we're serving children, and children that are born on the opposite side of the opportunity divide. So naturally, people look at us, and whether we're for-profit or nonprofit, they see the good work that we're doing. I think for others, it's a completely confusing landscape, which lends itself to a landscape where you don't know. And so what can happen there is you can kind of put on a front and at its root really not be affecting change and just be putting on a front. And that's one of the big challenges that we're running up against as consumers and as business people, I think, right now.
So healthcare has been front and center with all of the Obamacare stuff that's been going on, whether you agree with it or not. My question for you is, what do you see as the future of healthcare in this country? Let's look 5 years out. Let's look 10 years out. What does healthcare look like right here in America?
Great question. So I think for just to take a step back, we started the organization, and as we started hellosmile, the big thing that we realized is what actually our why is, which is that for the first time in history, we're raising a generation of children that are living shorter lives than their parents. And so that's really the bedrock of the healthcare landscape that we're stepping into. And we're living in a time where it's the most connected time in history. We're in a technological renaissance. But there's something alarming about this fact, that our children are actually being born into an environment that's the unhealthiest environment in the history of time. Yeah. And so I think right now, as we look at healthcare, and unfortunately Obamacare isn't really affecting this, you've got two types of reform that are going on. Budget reform, so the government saying, okay, well, how much are we going to allocate to healthcare? And then you've got payer reform. So how are we going to actually pay for healthcare? What you don't have at all is delivery reform. So actually, how is this healthcare being delivered, and how do we keep people healthy? And even now, that's really not part of the landscape of conversation. And I think that's the shift that's going to have to happen, is actually how are we going to keep people healthier?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the work you're doing and for being here. My guest today has been Farhad Attaie. He is the CEO and co-founder of hellosmile. You can find out more about the organization at hellosmile.com. And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, you can visit thenextcrop.com/more for 5 more minutes of this episode, totally for free. It's the only place you're going to find it. We're going to be talking about what social entrepreneurs and budding social entrepreneurs need to know to be more effective. Again, that's only at thenextcrop.com/more. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.